the mental side of adversity in the game of hockey. So welcome back to the Brass Ass YouTube podcast, folks, in association with It's a Hockey Life podcast. I'm your host, Suitcase Ace. You know, look, hockey is a game of speed, skill, and grit. But it's also a game of adversity. Because every player, no matter the level, faces challenges. Being scratched, benched, sent down, or even cut. And how you respond to those moments often really defines your career more than the goals you score or the saves that you make. So in today's episode on the Brass Ass podcast, folks, we're gonna be diving into the mental side of adversity. How to stay confident when things don't go your way, how to use setbacks as fuel, and how to come out stronger every single time. Number one on the list here on adversity, folks, is facing reality. I'll tell you why. Adversity, folks, is part of the game, right? No one, and I mean no one, has a smooth, perfect hockey career. You got to start thinking about the players in the National Hockey League today, right? A lot of them weren't stars at the age of 15 or 16 years of age. Some were cut from junior teams. Others had to grind it out on the fourth line, finally breaking through. But here's the honest truth. Being scratched or benched doesn't mean that you failed. What it is, folks, is it's just information. The coach is saying, right, something has to improve, right? And your job is to take that challenge head on. When I look back when I was playing professional hockey in Carolina, right, there were nights that I didn't get the ice time that I wanted. And yeah, it hurt. But you know what? I realized sitting there sulking wasn't gonna change a thing. What did change things was, for me, was asking. Asking things like, what can I do differently next practice? I'll tell you something, that shift in mindset from frustration to action is what separates players who fold, right, from the players who grow. Now our next level here on adversity, folks, is the confidence battle. You know what? Confidence is fragile. One bad game and suddenly you're questioning everything. But here's the mental trick. You got to separate performance from identity. One game doesn't define you, right? One mistake doesn't erase all your work either. Think of a goalie who let's say gets shelled for 5 goals in the first period, right? The great goalies, the great ones, they reset. Yes, they do. And they say that game's over. Next save is mine, right? That's the mental toughness what I'm talking about. Here's an exercise that you can use. Write down one thing that you did well and one thing that you need to improve. That way you don't spiral into negativity, right? Before you go to bed, even have a notepad beside your bed, jot this information down. It's like a journal. You stay balanced, focused, and confident, right? And remember, coaches notice the guys or the girls who bounce back. They really do. They don't want players who mope. They want players who respond. Well, my advice for you is use the setbacks as fuel, right? Adversity can crush you, right? Or it can light a fire underneath you, right? But you know what? The choice is yours. And I'll give you another example. One of my teammates, when I was playing in Nashville, right, was cut from junior teams coming through the system before he finally made a roster. He could have quit back in the time when he was 18, 19, 20 years old. Instead, this player, he doubled down on his fitness, He worked on his skating and came to camp the next year. He was flying, right? Not only did he make the team, but he earned a top line role on the team. I'm telling you, because he didn't give up. He kept on working hard. He figured out what he needed to do. And that's the bottom line. That's the power, folks, of turning rejection into motivation. Really, the next time you get less ice time, or you don't make a team, let's say, you got to ask yourself, am I going to let this define me, or am I going to let this drive me? That's the mindset of champions. You know what? Building mental routines is huge, right? You could train your mind, by the way, the same way you train your body. You know, visualization is huge, right? Spend 5 minutes, before games, picturing yourself making the right plays, clean passes, and hard back checks, finishing your checks. Your brain starts to believe it. I'm telling you. You do that before a game. I tell my players a lot of times, when you go to bed the night before a game, think about things you do good on the ice. Just like you're dreaming of sheep, it gets embedded into your mind, and your mind starts to believe it. You got to have a reset button out there, folks, for different situations. Because when you make a mistake on the ice, you got to have a quick reset, right? Some players, what they do, they tap their stick on the ice. Others take a deep breath, right? So do something physical, folks, right? That tells your brain, next shift, fresh start. Right? You just reset. And you gotta have positive self-talk. You really do. Instead of don't mess this up in your head, say I'm ready. I'm done. I've done this before, and I'm ready to go. Confidence, folks, comes from repetition, right? And your words truly matter. And these mental habits, they'll give you control, especially, when the game feels out of control. So I give you a lot of information here on the Brass Ass Podcast, folks. You know what? From setback to comeback, right? Here's what I want you to remember. Adversity, it isn't the enemy, right? We know what it really is. It's the test, right? And if you pass that test, you'll come out stronger, smarter, and more reliable as a player on your hockey team. You know what? The truth is, every great hockey story, folks, has ups and downs for every player, right? From Bobby Orr, Ovechkin, Crosby, Marner, Matthews. I'm telling you, every player has their ups and downs, right? Yours will too, right? But the question is, right? How will you write the next chapter? Is what I want to put to you, okay? So, folks, you know what? That's it for today's Brass Ass Podcast. It's on YouTube, folks. I'm telling you, you got to check it out. Because today, we talked about adversity, the scratches, the benchings, and the tough conversations. But now you know, right? That those moments don't break you, folks. They build you, okay? Now, if you enjoyed today's episode, what I want you to do, I want you to share it with a teammate who might need this extra boost. And don't forget to subscribe to the Brass Ass Podcast, folks, on YouTube, right? So you never miss an episode. And we have a mini-series going on right now, and our next part, and one of our last parts on our mini-series is, we'll be covering building team chemistry, right? How to go from being just another guy or girl in the locker room to becoming the glue that holds a team together, right? You're going to learn how relationships off the ice make you stronger, right? Folks, remember, I am your host, Suitcase Ace. Thanks a lot for listening, folks. And I really appreciate all my listeners that come in, right? And remember, every setback, folks, is just the setup for your next comeback.